Chapter 31, Sade's Plan. Since their visit to the detention centre, Sade had been holding on to Papa's four little words: "We must be patient." Yet there were so many things she desperately wanted to talk about with him. Talking about Mama would be the hardest of all. However, more immediately, she needed his advice on what to do about Mariam and, of course, Marcia. To her relief, Marcia and Donna had completely ignored her again since the trip to Dord's store. Neither of them had asked her why she'd been away from school for 2 days afterwards. But Mariam was also keeping away, sitting on the other side of the class. She was sure Mariam knew. What made it worse was that she was guilty not only of theft. Mariam had thought she was a friend and had confided in her. She was guilty of betrayal. Not knowing what to do or say, Sade had been avoiding Mariam too. With Papa's unexpected arrival, she had managed to push all of that to the back of her mind. However, with this latest news, once again, everything was spinning wildly out of control. She had a vision of Papa being bundled onto a plane by the eyes and the fingers. How would We Must Be Patient help them? Who would even know what was happening to Papa apart from themselves? That would surely suit the eyes and the fingers. Out of sight, out of mind. That would suit the brass buttons too. When eventually she fell asleep early in the hours of the morning, Sade had a dream that was quite different from those that had been troubling her before. She is sitting in a large empty classroom, her eyes fixed on a television screen. The 7 o'clock newsman moves his lips, but the screen is silent. He's in a desert and his pale hair is windblown, dusted with fine, dry red sand, like that swept down from the Sahara by the Harmattan. His eyes concentrate down on her, narrowing, straining to see through the haze. She can tell from the way he leans forward that he is talking about something serious. Suddenly, a photograph flashes onto the screen. It is of a round-faced man with daring eyes, a broad, handsome smile, and a pipe with a curved stem. Mr. Sarawiwa. Other faces follow that she doesn't recognise. The camera switches to a studio. The red dust vanishes, but Mr. 7 o'clock's eyes remain narrowed on Sade. Swivelling sideways, he lowers his gaze towards someone shorter at the desk beside him. She is startled to find herself staring at herself. When Sade's alarm buzzed in the morning, her head felt heavy as if it wanted to pull her back into sleep. But an idea was already hazily trying to enter her mind. Gradually, it became clearer and sharper, demanding that she think about it. By the time Aunt Gracie knocked on her door, calling that it was time to get up, the idea had turned into a plan. When Sade came downstairs for breakfast, Aunt Gracie did not reveal anything of what Mama Appiah had told her the night before. Sade could tell that she was trying hard to be bright as she prepared their cereal and sandwiches. When the telephone rang, Sade guessed it was Papa. Would he also try to keep back the awful news? Papa, however, spoke openly about the latest turn in events. Matters were too serious to hide from them. This trumped-up charge against him proved that the government had a hand in Mama's murder, and they were trying to cover up their crime. There was no time to lose. Mr. Nathan would make an immediate appeal and write to the British Home Secretary, while Papa would send his letter to the Union of Journalists. Sade listened. Papa was talking the way he used to speak with Mama. Each time his newspaper had to tackle a new problem with the authorities, he would talk through their plan with Mama. If our strategies and tactics are right, we can hold out against them. They have the power, but we have intelligence. Now Mama was dead, and Uncle Tunde was far away. Whom could Papa talk to? So he was explaining to her, his daughter. I don't believe the British will send me back. Anyway, not so soon after the Sarawiwa affair. Papa's voice had been steady, but now he hesitated. I don't want you and Femi to worry. Let me talk to Femi now. Femi held the receiver like a wooden statue. Apart from tiny humming grunts, he didn't reply to Papa. Sade took back the receiver to say Odabo. Papa's voice had become very quiet. Sade waited until she had closed the latch on the gate and was walking beside her brother. The bare trees along the pavement stretched upward like elderly hands with knuckled fingers begging. I know a way to help Papa. Will you come with me after school? Where? Femi frowned at her suspiciously. I can't tell you yet. I have to check something first. Both of us must go. What will Auntie say? I'll ring her after school. I'll tell her that we'll be late. This is very important for me. I'll miss my programs if I go. Sade swung to a halt. She grabbed Femi's arm and made him face her. What's wrong with you? This is more important than watching TV. It's not playing. Don't you want to help Papa? She demanded. A glimmer of hurt flickered in Femi's eyes before they shut in again. He remained silent, his jaw set tight. Well, if you want to help, meet me at the bus stop opposite your school. I'll be there at 3:30. Sade tugged sharply at her rucksack straps and marched ahead. Further down the road, guilt began to niggle at her for leaving Femi like that. She needed him for her plan, but it was no use begging or even prodding him. He would simply retreat more into his shell. No, she just had to face him roughly with the choice. Either he helped Papa or he didn't. But even if he did not come, she would still have to carry it through as best as she could on her own. At break, Sade hurried to the library. On previous days, she'd watched a librarian help students who came with different questions. Mrs. Howe would point them to the right books or to the computer. Throughout the morning's lessons, Sade had silently tried out various ways of asking her question. Everything depended on it. She might have asked her English teacher, but was worried that Mr. Morris would become curious and ask unwelcome questions. She was not yet ready for that. She was at the top of the stairs leading to the library when she almost came face to face with Mariam. Sade turned aside so hastily and pushed open the library door so forcefully that she would not have been surprised if Mrs. Howe had sent her right back out. The librarian flared with annoyance, ready to order the noise vandal out. But as she met Sade's eyes, her anger strangely dropped. What is it? She asked evenly. Excuse me. Sade's voice fell to a whisper. I need the address for the 7 o'clock news, the television studio, please. 15 minutes later, Sade eased her way through students crowding on the stairs and corridors with the address on a piece of paper in her pocket. It was somewhere near the centre of London, according to Mrs. Howe. At lunchtime, Sade returned to the library to study a map. On the back of the paper with the address, she drew a rough map and wrote in the names of the roads and places that she would need to recognise. She would ask at the bus stop which was the right bus. She and Femi had managed it once before, all on their own. It should be easier now, she told herself. Nor was she worried about fares, having saved most of her pocket money from Aunt Gracie. Her biggest worry was Femi. She fervently hoped that he would come with her. She needed him for her plan as much as she needed his company. Sade reached the bus shelter at 3:30 and scanned the small group of waiting passengers. No Femi huddling among them. Only a couple of children were still waiting outside Greenslade School. They wound their arms around their coats to keep out the wind whipping down the street. Femi must have gone back to his television programmes. Aunt Gracie would have a piece of cake and a drink waiting for him, and the house would be warm. She couldn't blame him. She should have explained more of her plan to him instead of being so secretive. But she had told him it was for Papa. Didn't he care? Sade looked for a notice about the buses. A small board with the glass broken indicated the place where there had once been information about bus numbers and routes. Her eyes trailed across to Femi's school again. The 2 children had gone and the school looked deserted. If she was already feeling cold and lonely, it was going to be far worse later this evening. She was wondering whom to ask about the bus when someone tugged her coat. She swung around. Femi had come after all. She could have hugged him. Instead, she grinned. Where are we going? He asked solemnly.